Welcome to the DTC Slingshot Podcast. I'm your host, Lockie Thompson, and I'm also the founder of Social Slingshot, a paid advertising agency. This podcast is your go-to resource for e-commerce entrepreneurs seeking insights from industry leaders and experts. If you magically stumbled across this podcast, I'm truly grateful you've chosen to listen. If you have any questions whatsoever or specific topics you'd like us to cover, do not hesitate to reach out to me on Instagram at Lockie Social Slingshot. While this podcast is tailored to the broader e-commerce community, if you're ever in need of direct marketing assistance, remember that Social Slingshot is here to help. Our mission is to drive as much success for as many e-commerce brands as possible by being the most results-driven and client-focused agency in the market. Now, with all the admin stuff taken care of, let's dive straight into today's episode. G'day, everyone. Welcome back to the DTC Slingshot Podcast. Today, I'm joined with the founder of Kings of Neon, Steve. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Lockie. Thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, and for those who don't know, Steve owns one of the fastest growing companies in Australia, but do you just want to give yourself a quick introduction and a little rundown on how you started the business?
Yeah, certainly. I think first and foremost, I'm a dad. So dad, two kids, 9 and 6. And then also, obviously I'm a husband. I've got a lovely wife too of 11 years. I think that's important to sort of showcase in business. But in essence, mate, I was in real estate, and then I went into gyms, and I've been to the mines, and I was a DJ of an events company. And then essentially COVID hit. So we were renting out these LED signs as part of, the weddings and events that we went to, and just saw a little glimmer of hope in the sense of selling sort of custom and online neons. So never been in e-commerce or done anything like that. Decided to build out a website. And yeah, once COVID hit, I didn't really have an extra choice of how to earn money. So decided to go all in on this. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's a pretty common trend for these podcasts at the moment. I swear everyone started their business in COVID. I haven't had anyone before that, or maybe 2018, the furthest back. But yeah, there were so many businesses in that boom. But I just want to go back to the start. You sounded a bit like a job jockey. Do you just want to tell me a little bit about that experience, hopping around from different jobs all the time? Like, were you a bad employee or...
No, I think it, maybe I look younger than my years, mate. But, so that was over a span, I guess, of about sort of 18 or 14 years. So in essence, I started out of school in real estate. So I did a traineeship there and, did, 2 years in real estate. I was super young and super arrogant. So, and I wanted to earn...
for real estate.
yeah. But I wanted to go on and earn the big bucks, and essentially I was being held back, probably by my maturity and my age. So I actually decided to go over to the mines then. So I went over to Perth and was an underground diamond driller. And in essence, I made my 100,000 odd a year at the age of 19, 20, and I fulfilled my dream of getting my first house when I was 20. So that was the goal, I guess, in essence, for that little sort of trip. Came back from there and I got into gyms. So gyms was with Fitness First, and I was there for around 2 odd years. Again, pretty... I was told that I was still too young to go and do all the types of things that I wanted to do, but yet still probably a little bit immature. And I was actually approached by Michael Hill Jewelers. So Michael Hill Jewelers hit me up, and I actually spent 8 years at Michael Hill Jewelers, and sort of got to travel around Australia and the world and work in sort of different countries with them, which was pretty fun. But inevitably got over it and decided to start a business in events.
Yeah, awesome. And you just want to touch a little bit on Kings of Neon. What do you actually sell? And talk about the business growth to where you've built it today.
Yeah, for sure. So we primarily sell LED neon signs. So we do sell other types of signage, depending on the customer and the use case, as well as strip neon. In essence, we started off selling to Australia, but now we sell more globally, but predominantly in the US and Australia. So yeah, the first year, the first sort of couple of months we did, $60,000-$70,000, and then the next year we did 800,000, and then following 3.5, and then last year we did 5, and now we're on track to do about 8 to 10. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. And were there many competitors in the space at the time doing what you were doing?
Yeah, there was a few early starters, probably maybe sort of 1 to 3 years. Interestingly enough, Australia has some pretty prominent players in globally for LED neon signs. So two of the larger companies are actually Australian based as well and Melbourne based. So and they were previous to us coming on board. But yeah, now I have, I think, about 350 different competitors.
In every
so
factory in China.
Yeah. Look, it's an easy entry point for most. Normally they come and go pretty quickly. They see an opportunity and realize how hard it actually is. But look, I mean, it's all part of the game. It's a bit of fun, and sometimes it's interesting because you see people's different take on it, and you might learn something or something new, and it always keeps us on our toes too. So it's good.
Yeah, for sure. And you just spoke about your explosive growth, and you had a few competitors back in the day. Just want to touch on your brand positioning, because you made nearly 100K in your first 6 months or so, that monthly run rate.
Yeah. So look, I mean, from a brand point of view, it was I've never I had a small, part of a small events company that was based on personality versus a brand. So I've never built a brand. I've never built an e-commerce site, never built a business as such. I guess the benefit to my previous existence is I'd ran pretty large teams and sales teams predominantly. So the only way I knew how to win initially was to hustle. And I hustled hard. And in essence, where we initially got wins was where most people weren't willing to do the work. So I'd pick up the phone for abandoned checkouts. I had a mantra. It was me and myself and my computer. So I had a mantra, in essence, to contact the customer within 5 minutes of them making an inquiry, or even as they were hitting the website. Because we had such low numbers on the website, I could see the live tracking of 2 or 3 people on Shopify, and I'd keep an eye open on abandoned checkout if they didn't check out, and then I'd be straight on it if they made an inquiry or something like that. So during COVID, there wasn't much to do, so that was my sort of life, and I just made sure that I gave them the best possible customer service to begin with, which gave us our first leg up of cash to expand.
Yeah, that's definitely something that most brand founders aren't willing to do, even after 5 or even 10 years, is get on the phone and ring some customers and ask or objection handle. I guess you learned a bit of that from your real estate days.
Yeah. Look, real estate. I guess Michael Hill, oddly enough, was a pretty salesy based environment, and Fitness First. If you remember Fitness First back in the day, it was sell or die sort of culture. So it was good in that sense. It's very much driven on the culture of closing, and that's how I've always sort of gone about my sales process. So yeah, it's interesting because Kings of Neon isn't the typical e-commerce business, and that's ultimately where we've won, because our competitors aren't willing to do the work and provide that extra amazing customer service. Whereas that's where we're driven by. We're a bunch of retailers, and we come with a heap of experience, and our customers really appreciate that. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm sure it wasn't all smooth sailing for you. What was some of the hardest stages of growth for you? Was it initially beginning, or was it between 10 and 50K, or more 100, 250K, hitting your first $1 million? Tell me a little bit about that.
They kind of come along every 2 to 3 weeks, to be completely honest with you. Look, I think having gone through this journey for the last few years, there's different struggles, and they all probably have a similar weight to it. Look at early on, initially, is the fact I didn't pay myself. So I didn't pay myself for the first really 12, 18 months. I'd take the odd cashy or things like that. And, everything was driven back into the business as a whole. So that was obviously difficult, and wanting to provide, and, having, a young family and whichever else. So just sort of making those ends meet and doing other jobs to make ends meet, and putting it all together. So yeah, I had 2-3 jobs really in the first year of Kings of Neon, and different things. So that was definitely difficult. Through to, my first bass, first real decent bass that I paid, which was emotional. I think like I had like 30 grand in the bank, and the bass was 26. And it just hit me between the eyes. I thought I was getting ahead, and I had 30 grand, but then the government wanted to take, 95% of it. So
yeah, that's one of my pet hates as well. You have this balance sitting there waiting for the end of the year, and you can see it in your bank balance, and then you just get hit with that bill, and you're just like, oh fuck.
Yeah,
to square one again.
Exactly right. So that's, it's obviously difficult. And then you might have, you'll have massive, you'll have big orders that may get big delays or big expectations, or, moments where, things don't necessarily go to plan, which is really difficult. Through to expansion and growth, where you want to run really fast and you want to like just climb to the moon, but you may have just overextended yourself, like mentally, and also just purely the fact I've never built a business this size before, so I don't know what I don't know. Through to, a couple of weeks ago, right? You might have a harder month, or you might have had a bigger investment period. We're investing a lot into growth in different avenues, and we didn't have as good a month as what we thought we would. So, overall, we've got a few different entities in the King's business, and, it's up to me to pay for those 40, 45 families that I help feed, right? So there's a lot of weight and pressure on that as well, to make sure that, we are delivering, we are hitting our budgets, we are expanding, we are growing, because people get really, really addicted to that too. That's our culture, is the fact that we come in, we win, we work hard, we push, we grind. So I make sure that, I'm delivering on my promise from my side as sort of founder and CEO.
Yeah, for sure. And you sort of answered one of my next questions already, but that's more about your team. Like you said, you had 40, 45 families that you have to feed, and through the business. I just want to tell me a little bit about your first hire and who you hired and why you made that decision, and if it was the right one as well.
Yeah, for sure. So, the main hire, the first sort of full-time employee, his name is Mark, who's a legend. He used to work with me at Michael Hill. So he was a fellow manager at Michael Hill. And in essence, he wasn't happy. He wasn't stoked about what he was doing. Bit of a shit job, a bit of a boring job. And I came back. I did a little, retreat with one of my mates who also was is an entrepreneur. And we went up to Kingscliff, and we was just feeling good. And I just called Mark at the end of it, and I said, mate, just come on board. And we sort of met and had Mexican, I think, a few days later. I said, look, I can pay you for 3 months. I've got 3 months of cash. If it doesn't go well, we gave it a shot. If it does go well, we just keep going for the ride. And, for us, it was very much about, and what I'm passionate about, inspiring, especially on sort of my talks and also, I guess the podcast as well, is the fact that I was in that 9-to-5 job that I hated. Like, I just severely disliked it. I thought that was my journey. That was my vision, planned out the next 10, 20 years. And I wasn't seen. I wasn't heard enough to my liking. And inevitably I was unhappy. But I see a lot of men, especially with, kids and families, where they have the expectation to provide and don't necessarily get that opportunity to make that jump. And like for us, for Mark and myself, it's very much, we were retailers. So, we're stuck in retail. That was going to be our existence, and we fucking hated it. Like, we hated it. We disliked retail. I don't dislike going to the local shopping center every time, just because you spent like 8, 10, in gyms. I spent, 2-3 years there too. So it's a lot of time in shopping centers, and we just wanted to recreate the definition of who we were as professionals as well.
Yeah, I went through a similar thing myself. Like, I was carpet laying before I did the digital marketing thing online. So every time I go past a job site or something like that, especially during the day when I'm going to grab a coffee or something, I'm like, holy shit, thank God I'm not doing that anymore.
For sure, man, for sure. And that's the thing, it takes a brave conversation, or it takes a brave move to take that big step, because you have to, the step isn't up, it's the steps down. So
Yeah.
before we go back. Obviously.
Yeah. Obviously, you hired Mark. What about some of your other hires along the way? What's been like one of the most impactful hires for you?
G'day,
DTC Slingshot listeners. Before we get back to our awesome discussion, I want to take a moment to share something special with you. Are you an e-commerce brand looking for clarity and guidance on your digital advertising strategy? Well, you're in luck. At Social Slingshot, we offer free 15-minute account audits to help you navigate this minefield. These quick but comprehensive audits are designed to provide you with valuable insights, personalized recommendations, and a clearer path to success. Whether you're struggling with ad performance, looking to optimize your campaigns, or just seeking some expert advice, our team is here to help. We'll review your current strategies, identify opportunities, and offer tips tailored to your brand. Don't let uncertainty hold your e-commerce business back. Take advantage of our free 15-minute account audits today. It's the first step towards maximizing your ad spend and crushing your competitors. To schedule your free audit, simply visit our website at www.socialslingshotau.com or send us a direct message on Instagram at LockieSocialSlingshot. Let's slingshot your sales together. Now, back to our episode.
Yeah, look, there's been a bunch. I looked at there's a lady by the name of Sarah. So Sarah's actually working in London at the moment. So she traveled over there around sort of 10 months ago. And I remember her coming in. So we were kind of a pretty grubby bunch. We're working out of a warehouse, that was shared with an architect, that, we were just sort of like just hustling to sort of get by. And Sarah rocked up in a Mercedes, dressed to the nines. And she's like, yeah, I wouldn't mind coming on board and joining this. And I'm like, mate, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah, sure.
But I think what's been really important and what's massive for me with Sarah is, I guess, and Sarah's now, bought in as a part owner into the business as well. And I wanted to give, the more invested employees, like, ownership over the business and the growth. So in essence, what we needed to do there is just like, or what she did for us, shall I say, is just like really brought on that trusting element for me. I need as a solo entrepreneur, it gets really quite tough. You don't have anyone to talk to. You don't have anyone to share the journey with. You don't have anyone to, experience it with. And as much of a legendary kind of employee she is, and how hard that Sarah works, she also gives me that space to be vulnerable and sort of go through those ups and downs as well.
Yeah, for sure. And what did she take over for you within the business? Was it like a marketing, or is it like team management, or?
So it's an interesting journey. So I put up an ad for a salesperson in essence. And before Sarah came onto the picture, we hired a gentleman for sales, but I just knew that Sarah would be perfect in some way, shape or fashion. And I just said, look, I just think you're a good human. How about you come along and we'll figure it out as we go. So Sarah's literally filled the gap for me. I did a bit of travel around sort of 18 months, 2 years ago. And she was, in essence, kind of like a step-in CEO and ran the business holistically through to more sitting in the CMO and branding space for Kings. And now she runs our in-house marketing team called Cookie Dough Marketing. So, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So you've branched off, and Cookie Dough Marketing is another agency, like, or an agency
Yeah.
connected to Kings of Neon?
Yeah, so it's an agency connected to Kings of Neon. The reason for it was mainly, no offense, but like you get quite despairing
There's a lot of shit
volumes
agencies
and
out there.
output of an agency. And and again, like our culture is like run hard, run fast, kind of mentality. And we just found that the agencies that we were pairing with at the time just couldn't run fast with us. And obviously, we were getting this amazing growth. We took our marketing in house just before this time last year, so about September, October, and all of a sudden we were kind of flatlining for 4 or 5 months, and we just went power, and had this amazing growth again.
What was that? What was the major turning point? Was it just like speed of delivery of creatives and the speed that you're making changes within accounts, or like what was that major turning point?
It's probably a combination of things. I think, in my opinion, where agencies kind of get it wrong is you really need to have the same person looking after your account. Like, it's really hard to obviously engage with the brand when you're talking to them once a week, and as much as, it may work, and it may work really well. We've got quite a complex business. It's not necessarily the standard e-com, push this button, push that button, hype, push. Like, we've got a large off-site B2B style business. And then we've got, obviously the online side of it. So some marketers will come in and really try and drive online, but that would tank B2B. Some would go, oh, well, you're getting a lot of your revenue from B2B, so they push B2B and tank online. There was never really a gel or an understanding of how it could run both. And typically a lot of agencies like to just go hard at low-hanging fruit, and I think for us, it was just the cohesion. We, over a couple of years, I've been frustrated to learn enough about Google Ads and learn enough about Facebook ads. Jumped in some communities and courses and just lent in essence, and just kind of, went, well, this is me, this is my business, got to learn it, and just started to learn it from the inside out.
Yeah, for sure. And is Cookie Dough Marketing still managing the Kings of Neon accounts?
Yeah.
They sort of outgrown you.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of an interesting play there. Some sort of like it, some don't. It's up to the individual, but it's a way of, we only partner with a very small select group of brands. We don't bring on this masses. We're not looking to grow. Cookie Dough Marketing was started to look after our brands and the future of our brands. So, there's a few different things in the works in the background. So we've got a ready-made team that can obviously execute on paid SEO, content, email, creatives. So if we need to push something out, we need something quickly, we can have something in 1 to 2 days, sort of thing. So
yeah, that's
at a relative of the cost it would be to have all of those individuals in there. So.
Yeah, of course, that's definitely a competitive edge. Now, you just spoke about having multiple brands. Have you started other businesses now?
Yeah, well, I guess, yeah. So,
wasn't that bin design thing you posted on TikTok a few months ago?
What was that? Sorry?
Your bin designs? You posted a TikTok.
Oh, bin designs.
That hasn't kicked off yet?
No. Like, I've got a lot of product ideas and whichever else. Sarah's going to be launching a brand called Slide, which will come in next year, which is pretty exciting. We've obviously got, Cookie Dough. Kings, we kind of split up into two. So it's Kings of Neon and Kings of Neon US or global, which is kind of those brands. We've got another AI and sort of development company that sits in the background. It's not development, sort of more AI software like SaaS. that we're building out, which should hopefully launch in sort of 3 to 6 months. So there's a few things in the background. I'm also part of another like a zinc company that's kind of like early stage startup as well. So yeah, there's a few kind of little ones, big ones, in the middle ones. So yeah,
keeping yourself busy.
I get bored pretty easily. It's funny because I remember I listen to podcasts most days, and I love Alex Hormozy and, Gary Vee, and they're sort of like, just lean into the one thing. Not so much Gary like dabbles, but he's like, when you start, lean into the one thing. And it's almost like, it was like permission one day when I was listening to Stephen Bartlett, Diary of a CEO, talking to Richard Branson. And it was a really powerful moment for me. And he just said, I just keep opening things. And if I didn't keep opening things, then some of those businesses would have failed. Because, you look at COVID and our airline would have failed and our hotels would have failed, if we didn't have Virgin Money or, Virgin Phones or whatever it may be. So he's like, I just find really great people to run those businesses. And I'm like, well, that's what I do. That's what I get excited about is finding great people that I can then sort of spread that risk and spread that responsibility and allow them to run and succeed as well. So I was like, you know what? I want to do it. I'm a little bit bored, so why not open up some more stuff?
Yeah, for sure. Now, surely you can't be bored in November. Obviously, Black Friday is a couple of weeks away, but from my understanding, you actually launched about a week or so ago at the start of November. You just want to tell me a little bit of the thinking behind launching so early?
Yeah, for sure. So as I was saying to you before we sort of chatted, like Kings of Neon isn't the traditional Black Friday business. We don't have a bunch of stock that we're looking to. I mean, the whole concept of Black Friday was essentially to move stock, right? So we are a print to order, in essence, we're a make to order brand. So we don't have that style of business. And also our purchases and repeat purchases aren't as great as some of the other sort of Black Friday or traditional Black Friday brands. So last year we went live on around the 15th, 16th, but our competitors, a lot of them went live on the 1st of November. So we just thought, look, you know what, let's go and start then. Let's see if we can be more competitive and grab, some percentage points in growth earlier, and then possibly see if we can sort of raise higher once that Black Friday hits. As you can probably sort of like see as well, like a lot of brands obviously do a lot of hype in October, start spending, increase spending. So for us, it's like, well, let's increase spend in November with an offer, see if we can fill that funnel more so we can attack the Black Friday fans when Black Friday hits, when they actually like, no, I'm waiting till Black Friday because it's going to be the best deal ever. So yeah, that's essentially the reasoning.
Yeah, and you're happy with how things have been progressing so far? Like, are you all in on one plan, or do you have a few backup plans in case something doesn't work as well? Or
I think it's important to always have a backup plan. It's always a risk reward November for sure. I think it's like Christmas in retail. Most of the shoppers come out in the last 2 weeks. It's the same with Black Friday. I think most of the shoppers you look at the trend reports and whichever else, they don't start until probably next Friday. And that's when it starts to ramp up. So, happy with where it's at the moment. Always want more, always pushing for more. But nonetheless, it's all going in the direction that we hoped thus far. So it's good.
Yeah, for sure. And just like you want your store to keep continuing to grow, what about yourself? Like, how do you stay in touch with yourself and your personal development side of things? What are maybe some resources you look to on a daily basis?
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to take up too much of your time on this because I geek out on this subject quite a lot. So I'm a big advocate of this one saying. It was actually Sarah that told me this saying. As much as I tell it back to her now, she doesn't really like it. But it's, you are where you are for a reason. And in this world, especially the Western world, we're all impatient. We're all wanting more. We're all desiring more, but we're not willing to wait for it, or we're not willing to do the work to experience it. And when I started to understand that, that's when I really started to, look after myself. Again, talking about my youth years, I was arrogant. I was probably lucky that I was, intellectually smarter than the average Joe. So I just rode that. I wrote it. But I didn't read. I didn't look after myself. I'd do the odd sport and I was okay shape in whichever else, but I didn't invest in myself at all. I didn't see the value in it until, when you said the hard moments, it was that bass moment. So the bass came through and I'm like, oh my God, like it just blasted myself and worked hard, did all over Christmas, working a couple of jobs. And I've got $3,000 left in the bank. And I was listening to Andy Frisella, and I'm not sure if you know the guy, but he has a program called 75 Hard, and he's a very aggressive American. He's just like, and it was like literally he was right there in front of me, and he's like, "Stop being a bitch, just go and do it." And that was about 2.5 years ago, and I've been doing that program pretty much on and off for the whole time. So that's, I don't drink. I read every day. I'm a big advocate of Wim Hof. I take cold showers. Things to just not necessarily in the ways of like that makes me some sort of superhuman, but it just keeps me in a routine. I'm an undiagnosed kind of ADD, ADHD kind of guy. I can't sit still. My head spirals everywhere. So I wake up just before 4:00 every morning. I read, I journal, I go to the gym, I do my cold showers, I do my breath work, and it just sets me up for the day. And I'd say that I'd probably do that 300 days out of 365 most over the last 2.5 years, sort of thing. So
yeah, awesome. It sounds like you got in before it became trendy to jump in the ice bath.
Yeah, I actually haven't jumped in an ice bath yet, believe it or not. So cold showers I live in a pretty cold spot. So it's pretty cold. I think a lot of data's come out. A dude called, I forget his first name, is Huberman. And he just said, look, you don't have to jump in freezing cold water. Like jump in mildly cold for 3 to 5 minutes, and that's more than enough to get the health benefits and mental benefits out of it. So I was just like, cool. I couldn't be bothered setting up an ice bath, and I don't want to spend $5,000 on one, so let's just do that.
Yeah, and then $5,000 on the ice to keep refilling it.
Yeah, it's the effort, and then I've got to drain it, and then it's like, I don't need the Insta photo of me in the ice bath going, how cool am I, sort of thing. So I just get it done.
Yeah. Well, I'll have to clip that and send that to a couple of my mates because I got a couple of those Snapchats. So.
Yeah. So they'll jump in once and, they clock the timer, but, for 5 minutes, they've probably only been in for 15 seconds, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we're coming to the end, but before I let you go, if you were to go back in time, what would you tell yourself or do differently? Other than being an arrogant young boy.
From a marketing perspective, spend money on SEO. That is a hot tip. I would take that and every day of the week. If obviously starting new businesses is a focus to start with SEO and drive organic content. There's definitely a play. And then from a personal standpoint is you've got time. Time's on your side. It's all good, just time's on your side, mate. So yeah, in essence.
Yeah, sweet as. Well, thanks so much for coming on today. I really enjoyed this episode. But before you jump off, you just want to give a quick plug to your socials or where people can interact with you?
Yeah, for sure. Look, on Instagram, we are the Kings of Neon. On every other platform, we are Kings of Neon. So whether it be LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, in essence. So yeah, that's us.
All right, cool. Thanks so much for coming on, and we'll see everyone in the next episode.
Thanks, Lockie. Appreciate it.
Hey, DTC Slingshot listeners. Unfortunately, this episode has come to an end. If you did make it this far, I'm pretty sure you enjoyed it. So how about hitting the thumbs up, leaving a comment, or even smashing subscribe? Any engagement or feedback truly helps us improve and grow. And remember, if you have any questions at all or insights you'd like to share, the best place to reach me is on Instagram @LockieSocialSlingshot. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.